Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, the Two Opinionated podcast could really use your help. And it's easy, it's free. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, imdb.com, named us a top 100 podcast. We came in at number 82. That's a big deal because there's 15 million podcasts and growing. So to be named to anybody's top 100 list, pretty big deal for us. And the way you can help is to go to imdb.com, look up the Two Opinionated podcast, and that's it. Just bringing our page up. That traffic really helps us out. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. All we ask is that you subscribe. It's also free, but that really helps us to attract these amazing guests that we keep bringing on the program. And that's it. Two easy ways for you to support us, and we would really appreciate the help. Now let's get to that interview. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Two Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I get to welcome back one of my favorite actors, Thaao Penghlis. So welcome, Thaao.
Oh, welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk with you. If you can believe it, it was a little over 2 years ago when we spoke last. You were just coming out with your first podcast.
Yeah, The Lost Treasure.
That's right, The Lost Treasure, and we had a terrific time talking. Really enjoyed that, and now you're coming back, and we've got a new one coming out.
Yeah, this one started in 2010.
Oh wow!
So, well, the Schliemann one, which was The Lost Treasures, was about 20 years in the making because I spent that many years without realizing it was going to become a podcast as well. But this one, I had read that the Pope had created these sacred sites along the Nile.
Yeah.
And so I got really interested. And so I took a journey for 2 weeks. And so I wrote some of the stories down that I experienced, but I never thought it'd be a podcast. And then I thought, what would be my next podcast? And I thought, well, people are very interested, especially during the holidays when it comes to the birth of Christ and
That's right.
And the three wise men. But I wanted to explore it further. I wanted to find out where the wise men came from and what their purpose was in the king's court and how they foretold about the miracle that was supposed to take place in Judea. And so I followed that whole route. And then at the time it was Herod, and in northern Persia it was Tarsus. And so these two villains in the story, in a sense, because of the way they treated their families and their people.
Yeah.
But in between those two columns were the three wise men, which were to me innocents and messengers from God, in a sense, and their whole journey that took place, because we've only seen postcards of the three wise men. We've never discovered who they were, really.
That's right. Yeah, we know very little about them.
No, and also, some cards will make one of the wise men very dark skinned. Now that could be right because they came from northern Persia,
right?
And it was part of what they called the Zoroastrian religion, and these were the astrologers, the astronomers of the king's court, and so I enjoyed discovering their route and where they came from and how long it took for their journey to arrive in Jerusalem, because we see all the time Christ in the manger when the three wise men came.
That's right.
But really, the truth of the matter is it took them months and months to prepare and months to get there. So by the time they reached it, the Christ child was almost 2 years of age. So
yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and so I thought, somebody said to me, "Oh, people are not going to like that because they're used to the idea that the Christ child was in Mary's arms when the wise men came."
Right.
And so that's why when the Massacre of the Innocents, which was proclaimed by Herod, was really about all those young boys that were 2 years and under. So they gave you the age of that time of what the massacre was about. And so when they escaped, was really a really a fascinating journey to go to all the different spaces that they hid in those 4.5 years in and brought about what they called the Coptic religion, which they brought Christianity to Egypt. And so, when you think about who was before then, so many prophets had hidden in Egypt. So Egypt played a very important part in the history of Christianity.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people know that kind of just inherently because you read about it in the Bible. Egypt had a presence there, but most of us don't really put much thought into that and what that really means. But obviously, it's got some pretty large implications.
Have you heard any of it at all?
Of course, yeah. I kind of grew up around the Baptist religion. My grandfather was a Baptist minister, so I at least know the Bible stories that we have. Most of that, though, with the wise men, that's where it stops. It begins and ends with me as far as what I know about the wise men and that journey. I just know where they ended up, and it sounds like the timeline isn't even quite what we thought.
No. Well, when you think of a story that happened over 2,000 years ago, things change.
That's right.
But listen, we get messages last year and they change by the time they reach us.
True.
So imagine what 2,000 years does to historians.
Well, and really does that 2 years really make a difference in the story?
Yeah, it's when I thought about what it would have been like when the wise men who had foretold this story to the king and how they then decided that it would be a wonderful idea for the king of Persia to acknowledge the birth of this new king. And they were very clever that way. And so they were allowed and permission. And so they became the first pilgrims in history. And when you think of pilgrimages, mine was a pilgrim image. When you think about how Saint Helena, who was the mother of Constantine during the 4th century, when she went and she found the cross that Christ had been crucified on, and what she did with that cross. All these stories I find fascinating because what they did was they dug up our past and they brought it forth and they used the cross like the Crusaders in the 12th century used the cross, part of the cross that they received when they went to war and won 20 battles. So they always thought that the cross had magical powers, in a sense, that God was with them when they were facing their enemy.
Well, we've always kind of, at least had that belief that those religious artifacts had power, and the ones that were connected directly with Jesus were even stronger.
Right. And when you go to some of these places in Egypt, the Christian Coptic churches, inside them are many results, proofs of, like there are wheelchairs, there are jewelry, there are so many things that bless the people who were attached to them, like the young boy who was able to walk. He went enough times to the sacred grounds that the Holy Family had created, and he was able to walk, or how those bathing in certain waters, they're able to see. And so all those examples are in the church. Even when I went to Lebanon, and I went to Chabel, who was their great saint. When you go into that, for 3 months, when they buried him, the light force was coming through the ground, and whoever went there, all these blessings took place. And so when they brought up his body again after months of burial, it was exuding blood and oils. And so you see all those clothing, and they're there as an example of the belief system.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting, and I love the fact that all the things that you're interested in, you go actually look at the places. You go on the journeys to see the places where a lot of us would read about them, maybe dream about taking those journeys, but you actually go on the journeys.
Well, there's a big difference, having been there
Yeah.
and touched. I have visited many monasteries, not because I'm overly religious, but I am a spiritual being
Yeah.
and I have faith. And you think about, well, what happens when you don't have faith? Well, it leads to chaos because there's nothing to believe in.
That's
So
right.
you think you can get away with anything. So we've got to have certain rules in society, and faith being one of them. Because if you don't feel guilt, if you've done something that's negative or against humanity, how do you face yourself? So whether it's true or not, I think it's very important that we hold those things dear.
Yeah, I agree.
And having walked the path, when I climbed Mount Sinai and when I reached the top at 6 in the morning after traveling 5 hours up the mountain, I remember when the light came up, the sun came up over those amazing landscape, and I remember this 96-year-old monk who lives in this small church on top of Mount Sinai, and when he came out to me, he said to me, "Thank you for coming." And I said, "Why would you thank me?" And he said, "Because when you walk the path, you keep it alive." And so it really stayed with me what he said. And so you become part of that history.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoy. So that when I look at where I've been and the path I've taken, makes me feel that I became a man of the world in a sense because I became part of that history. And so there's something about taking the time to sit in a spot where the Holy Family stayed for 4 months and taking the energy in, and then seeing children coming down into this cave and praying, doing their cross and lighting a candle. And I'm thinking, look at that child, look what was given to them, a sense of faith and behavior. I mean, behavior is very important because it allows respect to what it is it's embracing at the time.
Did that journey did it reveal anything to you surprising? That did you discover anything that kind of took you off guard or surprised you?
Um, I think when I walked into a Coptic church and everybody turned around and looked at me because they knew I was a foreigner.
Yeah.
But by the time I left, they were smiling at me and coming up and embracing me. And in many ways, you take in all that love and that embrace, and in some way, it changes you. It allows you, in many ways, to open up to areas that maybe you had shut down or became cynical about the situation. And I think what it did for me more than anything is it made my faith greater.
Yeah.
Because I saw that people didn't come out of those churches or those monasteries raging and killing and hating. They came out with a sense of calm and love and the fact that they have been blessed with something that was bigger than themselves. Whereas these days, what we're going through is the distortion of religion,
Yes.
the hypocrisy of
Yeah.
religion.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
You know, they don't come out. It's about raising money and it's politics. You see people coming out and then the next minute is they're pointing fingers and not accepting their fellow man because their skin is a different color or they come from a different country.
It's been a little disappointing.
It is. Listen, I can only leave with what I have explored in my life.
Right.
I don't, I saw my parents, they would have been rather sad in many ways because we were a poor family, but because of the success I had in America and I was able to help them and also send them overseas so many times, it changed their life.
Yeah.
And so that my success was passed on to others and it made them joyful rather than keeping it for myself, as part of greed.
Right.
And how do you share? Because a fellow actor of mine who is not very successful, but he turned around to me one day because I fed every week during COVID. I fed 5 friends every week. And he said to me, you use your success in a positive manner. You share it. Whereas a lot of people become very selfish about it and become very self-important. And I think that's when you lose track of the path that you're on. That's
I
when,
love that, because if more of us kind of responded that way, how many of the world's problems could we fix?
no, people don't realize that when they do those things, they dim their own light.
Yes.
You know, how does a person who comes in and makes a wonderful entrance, well, there's something about them, that light when it's bright, we can't assume what it is, but we know something about them is bright. And that's a person who carries something very special about themselves and what they contribute to.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you can always tell the darkies from the lights. You know, those who constantly criticize, those who constantly create conflict and create chaos, rather than embracing a society and making them feel loved and making them feel like they have a purpose in life and they're part of the contribution. You know, my teacher used to say, we're all part of a cake. You look at a cake and every one of us has a piece of that, so that when it comes together, it's whole. But when we take it out and we don't share it, well, then it becomes chaotic, and then the whole purpose is gone. You know, that's why you light candles.
Yeah. I love that.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. You always teach me something when we talk.
Oh, well, I don't know what I'm going to say. It depends on how each person brings something different within from me when we're doing an interview. Um, I don't listen to my interviews afterwards because I'll go crazy.
Well, you do so many of them. Yeah, you probably don't even have the time necessarily. You already did them, so it'd be tough to sit back and listen to all of
Well, it's like actors don't like to see themselves on screen. I'm one of them.
them.
I don't look at my work. All I know is that it worked that day. I don't want to see a cameraman's bad angles or
Right.
bad lighting or the bad editing.
That's
I
right.
just don't know. I did my job. It went well, and
Yeah, and that's enough.
yeah, that's not. You know, it's like cooking. You don't have to taste your cooking. You know, after a while, that when you know from people's responses
That's
how,
right.
you
You know
know,
if it's good or not.
right. Yeah. That's one thing I don't have to ask for. You know, I don't have to say, so how's the dinner? I never ask that. I just look at people's behavior, and they will, in some way, interpret how much they love the food.
Yeah.
And I've done it long enough to be able to say, we hold hands and around the dinner table as a watering hole, and give thanks for what we're receiving. Just like we do at Thanksgiving. We do it every time we break bread.
Well, yeah, and you've written a book, a cooking book. It's
Yeah.
been a little while back, but the Seducing Celebrities One Meal at a Time book, which I love that title.
Yeah.
But it just kind of shows your love for food and for cooking and for sharing it.
Well, I had just come out of the hospital for something that I had to check and everything. But as soon as I came out, the first thing I went and did is I went to Whole Foods and bought oysters because that to me is part of the celebration.
That's right.
I don't drink. So, for me, it was oysters because that's how, as a kid, I used to get a knife and a lemon and some bread and then get on the bus and go to the ocean and eat oysters off the rocks. I
Amazing.
love doing that. They're no longer there anymore. You know, the
That's right.
Europeans
Yeah, but back
arrived there.
then you could.
Oh yeah, we were part of a new immigrant policy in Australia that allowed so many Europeans in, and I was an immigration official. I became because I got very interested in immigrants,
Yeah,
and because my parents were immigrants, I was born in Australia, but I just wish we would treat each other a little better. I don't
me too.
understand why we have to be so careless and so disrespectful to human beings. Um, there's ways of doing it, and I just see there's too much ego in the behavior, and a lot of insecure men who
Yeah.
don't believe that gentleness and yet a solid hand is enough. well, when you see the way they throw women down, it's so upsetting to me because the immigrants I met in Australia were people who were really coming because they were having a hard time or
That's
because of
right.
after the Second World War. And so they came to Australia as a new beginning. And look what happened to Australia. I mean, we're a country of immigrants, just like America is.
Right.
Um,
I
you
mean,
know,
that's what America was kind of founded on, right?
right, right.
We were kind of open to immigrants coming here because that's how we started.
Yeah, I don't understand this whole thing about being white. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I'm
don't either.
Caucasian, I'm Caucasian. I mean, we go to all different restaurants. Could you imagine all the different cuisines that are available to us because of these other nationalities?
Yeah,
And
that's right.
also what
I mean,
what
how boring would it be if it was just us?
well, I saw that in Australia. It was meat pies and steaks and sausages and eggs, was the British cuisine.
Yeah,
But here, I mean, in Los Angeles, there's so many fantastic restaurants. New York, in all the cities, there is a touch or an influence of a European
yeah,
or an Asian, and so it's kind of wonderful. So I don't understand why people are so limited in their
yeah.
thinking,
Agree.
and they're also backward. They're not thinking forward because in the end, the world has become one place,
Yeah,
and we need each other in order to survive.
probably more
And
now than ever.
yeah, and also the wars that are taking place. I mean, the egos of men.
Yeah.
This is what gets me sometimes. That the male. That's why I love listening to women because they have both sides. They're
Yes.
much more objective when they talk about life. Men is all about hands in the pocket and attitude and I'm self-important and you know eventually they're going to fall.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a lot of ego with men.
oh yes, it's I don't know why they feel so insecure when they've been given so much in life.
Right. Yeah, just enjoy it. And you don't have to hoard it. There's enough. Share it. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, especially in this country, they're so abundant in things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Are you setting up the Great Escape? Is it going to be kind of like Lost Treasures, where each episode you explore something a little bit different, but it ties into the whole?
yeah, well, that's why I did it as a three-parter.
Yeah.
The opening, which is the introduction, I wrote after I came back from that journey, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't lose the ideas. Um, and then out of that came the discovery of what was it that I discovered while I was roaming the areas and who was part of that history. Um, and so I thought, I think it would make an interesting Christian film.
Yeah. I agree.
I thought, and because it's different. The stories are different from what we've known. And basically I've expanded the postcard
Yeah.
and gave it a life. And so the whole ceremony of the three wise men and what they get by being in sync with each other and what they know what they can say and not say, how they would help the king and his interpretation of what he just dreamt about and how smart they were to take the argument and put it in a positive place and how they convinced him for them to take the journey and to become the first pilgrims and go to Jerusalem. And I found that route and the fact, you see three wise men, but they couldn't have gone up by themselves. They would have had to have had some escorts because those regions were, dangerous.
Yeah. Of
And
course.
so, and they were on God's journey in a sense. That's why they followed the light and how they understood the Jupiter and the moon
Yeah.
and how that gave them something that incredible was going to happen and that has never happened in 1,000 years. And so by the time they reach it, and they go through, so everything's a passage, everything has its danger points, everything. But because of the psychic phenomena they had, the sense of dream interpretation, they were able to take a different journey and to make a safe journey because what Herod realized that they weren't coming back to give him the information of where the Christ was. And so that I enjoyed playing. I like also exploring Herod. I didn't realize he was such a young king and what he was able to do, in the architecture of that still remains today, Herodium and Masada and Caesarea. I mean, all those areas. But what a monstrosity he was. Because they didn't have their gods were false gods, and they thought they were God within themselves. But his death was rather terrible, and so was Phrotasis. So I like the spying that deals with Persia from Rome and all that, so that you have all these different things moving in and out, so that by the time you get to the holy place, it is some place, and then you come into the miracles that the Christ child had created, and you follow them. There are many more. I mean, you can look up the miracles of Christ, and then I would probably include a couple more, and how their presence and when they left, what it did to the people. It gave them a faith they didn't have before,
right?
Because idols collapsed, and creating an idol like those statues, and I realized that when I went to Asimun, an area which was the first stop of the Holy Family along the Nile, when I arrived, I thought, my God, there's nothing here except these columns, Greek columns. And I thought, so where are the statues? And there's no palm trees growing here. It's kind of arid in a way. Well, I turned on National Geographic a few weeks ago, and what do I see? They're in that area now, and they're digging up all these statues from the ancient world.
They were just buried.
They were just buried because the Nile had shifted and the waters had come in, and then those statues collapsed and covered with the silt of the Nile. And I went, wow. I was walking, and beneath me were these enormous statues of Ramesses II. So, it's discovering things like that as a coincidence.
Yeah, and I've always had a fascination with that. So I loved the Lost Treasures podcast that you did. So I'm looking forward to this one. Did you make it? I know you were working on a screenplay for Lost Treasures. Any traction on that?
No, I haven't. I haven't done anything with that because I was busy with this. I remember some producer said to me, "Thaao, build up your library," because when one hits. So now I'm going to approach somebody I've worked with before who deals in very successful producer in Christian films. I just think it would be a wonderful Easter or Christmas film.
I agree. And we need some new ones.
Yeah, we need some new interpretations and also to broaden our history with what our understanding is. It's broadening and giving a bigger canvas to the piece. And so... and I've got now the third one in the beginnings of it, which is going to be the next podcast, which is going to be
exciting. You're looking ahead.
Well, that's the secret to longevity, is having the idea that there's more to tell rather than just sitting back and I've done enough. I've done 43 years of Days of Our Lives. I've done all these other shows and everything, and I've done a couple of books, and now these short stories I've been writing. And then I went, so what else is there? And so suddenly somebody approached me about this story of Lord Elgin and how they stole the marbles out of the Parthenon and where they ended up. But what this man, Lord Elgin, was, it's just fascinating how he was imprisoned by Napoleon and in the early 1800s. But it's absolutely phenomenal story. So
is that the third one? That going to be the third one?
That's going to be my third one.
Yeah, amazing. Did you see that they? I read the other day where they discovered a skeleton that was about 500,000 years older than what they believed, or when they believed Homo sapiens first, kind of appeared. Now they can go back several 100,000 more years.
Could you imagine when during the time of Schliemann, they didn't think there was anything before.
Yeah.
The unrecorded history, and I said, they thought that the Bible kind of stopped at a certain point. And before that, the miracles of life happened, and God did all these miracles. And now we're finding that we go back millions of years,
Yeah.
and so everything has been wrong, and people have been arguing and killing each other for the wrong reasons, because someone may have created blasphemy because they said something that they disagreed with.
Right. I know. It's so silly to me. I always kind of took it as, we don't know how God tracks time. Who's to say that he's on our timetable? When he's talking about creating the universe in 6 days, was that 6 our days, 24-hour days, or is that 6 God days? I mean, 6 God days, that could have been 100,000 years. You don't know.
And who told us those stories? They were man-made, weren't they?
Yeah, they definitely were.
Yeah, well,
and you know that's very fallible.
Yeah, well, you know, when you go through the different ages, even when I crossed Sinai Desert and I went to St. Catherine's Monastery, there were these monks who were praying, and I went into the church and I can smell the candles, the wax burning for hundreds and hundreds of years. And then one monk lied to me about something. And I said to him, "You're a hypocrite." And he got really upset. I said, "You're a hypocrite." I said, "You say you stay here because you believe in God and everything, but in truth," I said, "you lie." And he wanted to throw me out, but I said, "It's not your place to throw me out." Now that wonderful monastery that was built in the 6th century is going to be turned into a resort area. And that is going to become a museum. And so they're throwing the monks out. So it's changing history again. And
yeah.
And I won't see it in my lifetime, but that whole Sinai area, that was very religious.
Yes.
To the Christians because of Moses and all that went through that time is now going to become a resort.
Oh, I kind of hate that.
Yes, because it takes away, when you go into these areas and it's just, this is where your imagination soars.
Right. That's right.
Otherwise, things smell differently and you have a chance for your imagination, but they're going to cover all that up with buildings, and they're going to open up the Mediterranean and allow water coming in so it becomes a lake, that whole area. I mean, they're going to make a lot of changes. Egypt's going to change its face.
Well, that's what we do when money's involved.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's how we are about money.
Yeah. Yeah. We tend to let it dominate things, and it causes us to destroy a lot of history that we probably should be working to preserve.
Yeah, well, also it's because it's like, where my brother may say to me, "Oh my God, do you know how much money he made?" And I went, "Yeah, but who is he?"
Yes.
He says, "What?" I said, "Who is he? I mean, what's he going to take with him? Not the money. When he goes with nothing.
Yeah.
Just who he is and what he did in this area of being tested as a human. Where does he go, and what does he see on the other side when he does make that transition? So the work is here. It's what you do with it. It's not about how much money you've made. It's how you've shared it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't.
That's why they're rich.
That's right.
That's why they have a lot of money. And it's all based on their ego and self-importance.
Well, it is. It is. It's disheartening, but there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of good things with their wealth. Just not enough.
They don't talk about it. There's a lot of very gifted actors who are also very generous.
Yes.
I mean, De Niro is one. I mean, DiCaprio. I mean, a lot of these actors have taken their abundance. It's about tithing, because it comes back.
It does. I've always believed you put positive out, you get positive back. Yes. But the reverse is also true.
Yeah. So anyway, I hope people will listen to this podcast, because I think it's a really interesting story that they've never heard about before, not in this way.
Yeah.
And the fact that Jill Santabanez, who did all the editing and the sound effects for me, did a fantastic job.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you're not just telling a story. I mean, you're making a story. You're adding in the sound effects, and you're making it more immersive.
Yeah, yeah, because it makes it, what people have told me is that you really make us feel like we're in it.
Yes. And you
Because,
do. I thought that with the Lost Treasures, and I think that with this one, it does. It's um, I kind of when listening to it, it kind of reminded me of listening to like an old radio show where it just pulled you in and you're just listening, and most of the actions happening, in your imagination, but
yeah,
you describe everything so well that it's very easy to see it.
yeah, and that's because I've been there, as you
Yeah.
said. When you've been there, there's another level that is beyond your imagination. You sit in the places where these godlike men walked and battled and explored and contributed to life as it was in those days, and how difficult. Because when I think of the disciples of Christ, how many of them,
Yeah.
all of them, really died terrible deaths
Yeah.
for their beliefs. Thrown over buildings, beheaded, Peter hung, crucified upside down. I mean, just terrible what they paid for their belief system.
Yeah.
And that's why, religion, I don't understand why people can't accept other people's religion and their belief system, because in a sense, it's all about the same thing. It's
I've
the
always believed that. It's just different versions of the same story.
same thing. And I remember reading a book many years ago that all of these different, from Confucius to Muhammad to the Christ to Moses, all of them are the same spirit that came in different times.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it keeps coming
So
back.
it keeps manifesting in each life and in each race to give them their belief system, to give them something to sustain themselves. So I thought that's interesting, because it's all of them are all part of creating ethics
Yeah.
in life, and also the belief in the goodness of man, and also in the way we love, and and also the things we crave, and the things that we will kill for, some as they do, out of greed and ego, because they have to have it. Look, when people found gold, and how it created all that craziness. It's a disease, and man he has got so many levels, and he has to be careful about what he learns well and how that sustains him and then goes to the next level. Otherwise, we become scattered. And
Yeah.
that's why you see chaos. That's how chaos and what's happened to our world. I think the leaders of the world who are really not for democracy are the ones who are creating the chaos, because it's all based on their ego and their wants and the way they see life, not the way, that's the great thing about democracy. It's a group of people making decisions. It's not
Right.
one person. And so when you travel the world, it's the best education to
Yeah,
learn
I
about.
agree with that.
Oh, I mean, it doesn't matter how many times I've gone to Egypt or to Greece or to Italy or to Jordan. There's always something new. It's never the same.
Yeah.
I remember when I was 26 when I went to Egypt the first time, and it was my boss in New York. He said to me, "I'm taking you with me to Egypt because I want to see it through. I've been there 9 times. I want to see it through your eyes." Well, I went crazy. I went to Egypt. You know what I mean? Just,
Oh yeah.
and my boss was just so excited to watch. Suddenly, someone has brought them back to the beginnings when they first came to
Well,
Egypt.
that's right. Yeah, it when you look through somebody else's eyes, it can spark a lot of things within you.
Yeah. And the same thing when I went to Greece and went to the Acropolis and stood in front of the Parthenon. That that was made me so emotional, because you see this incredible building, that so much of today's architecture has copied and its columns. And I mean, you see it, and then you see it wounded like it has been for those many centuries, what they've done to that building with no roof that used to be covered in what it had, and those statues that are now in the British Museum. It's just so much incredible stuff to see. And it's like even when you walk in Rome, every time you turn around, there's another piece of art.
Right.
You know? And I remember I went into a casting office once, and this woman said to me, "Oh, where have you traveled?" And I mentioned, one of the casting directors got up and walked out of the room. She said, "What's the matter?" She said, "Some of us have to work." I said, "The reason I took those journeys is because I worked."
That's right.
It didn't come free to me. I owned that journey.
That's right.
But I took that time because I needed to educate myself further.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you do that. And you've done it your whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Terrific. Terrific. Well, so the new podcast is The Great Escape. Where can we find it?
Well, you can see it on Spotify, on Amazon. It's on, there's five different areas that you can touch it. But Spotify and Amazon, you go there and
it's pretty much everywhere you can listen or watch a podcast.
Yeah. And, I said to people, it's a great thing when you're driving and you've got a long way to go home because of traffic. It's really an interesting story to listen to because it calms you.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a trip to Cincinnati this weekend, and it's about a 3.5, 4 hour drive, but that's our plan is to listen to the podcast while we're driving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it should be pretty good because 3 or 4 hours there, 3 or 4 hours back, we should be able to make a dent.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that's good. That's good. Enjoy it.
Well, before I let you go, sir, is there anything outside of the podcast that you're working on that we can keep an eye out for?
No, I think it's important to listen to the introduction.
Yeah.
Because it really gives you the basis of why I wrote these stories and where I went and explored these areas, finding the guide and taking me into these 8 sacred spaces and what I grasped from each one of them. And so that the part 1 and part 2 and the stories is the research I did that brought all that experience in part 1 in the introduction and became part of the story or became the foundation of the story and what those characters pop up out of it.
Amazing. Amazing. And yeah, I thought your introduction, I have listened to it. I thought it was terrific. And it really does kind of set up the rest of the podcast.
Yeah.
I stopped. I wanted to listen to a little bit, but I stopped because I was, we're going to listen to it together. So I was like, all right, I'll wait.
Well, enjoy it.
Now I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm going to send it to some members of my family. I told you that we're a Baptist family. My grandfather was the pastor, so I think there's a lot of them in my family that will enjoy that. So yeah, I'm going to pass it on to them.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Last thing, sir, where can we find you on social media?
Well, they can find me on Instagram at Thaao Penghlis. They can find me on Facebook at Thaao Penghlis. They can find me on X under Thaao Penghlis, and they can also find my books on Amazon. I think my first book, Places, which was the areas that I traveled and the experiences I had, but the cookbook is still available.
They are. I checked. They're both still there.
So I want to, because I'm looking to do also short stories. I've written about 8 of them, and they're all true stories of what I experienced. The last one I wrote was The Arrogance of a Loser. That tells you something.
That does. That kind of describes it right there.
Yes, I can see that in today's politics. You could look at them and say, there's the arrogance of a loser.
And honestly, that could describe a lot of people in politics.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
covering up.
unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, covering up with a hollowed ego
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
never enough.
I mean, not to get too political, but obviously we need a change, like a complete overhaul, because there's problems on both sides.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm just sorry that you look at the Latins now
Yeah.
who are finding that what is happening to their people and the way they're
Yeah.
being treated, they're having a whole different look. But I don't think that's the trouble. People don't listen. They don't take the time to understand what's
No,
going on in their world. And when they vote, it's a voting just from their pocket. They're not voting
that's right.
just for themselves. The vote is just selfish. It's not about how do we make, it's about the country,
Yeah.
how do we make the country
Well, that's
better.
right. It's not about how to improve everything for everybody. It's
No,
just about, what you selfishly think might help
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So thank you. I enjoyed our talk as usual.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
for your questions. And
We'll have
uh,
to make it a trilogy when you get the new podcast
yes,
out.
yes, 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 we've got to do that. And now I've got to get to write it. I've been reading and reading. Now I have to write it. And it's a great,
Is the reading the fun part, or is the writing the fun part?
the reading, is there. The writing, it's amazing how the mind discovers
Yeah.
that in through the subconscious, where the subconscious has collected information you don't even know. And
Yes.
suddenly when you're writing, this stuff comes up and then you read it a week later and you think, where did that come from? So you tap into your own source.
Yeah, I love that because that's so true.
Yeah,
You sit down to write and you don't even realize everything that you've kind of collected in your subconscious until you still starts coming out.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, enjoy.
Yes, sir.
Enjoy the rest of your year.
Oh, it's
And
good. Yeah, we still got a few months left. We'll make it a good year. So
yeah.
my
Anyway,
son,
wish your wife, what's her name?
her name's Emily.
Emily. Wish Emily a happy birthday.
Oh, I sure will. She'll appreciate that so much. My son will edit for me. Once it's ready, I'll shoot it over and I'll include all the links in it.
Okay, terrific.
All right,
Thank
sir. Hold on one
thank you.
second. I always love it when Thaao comes by. I think he's one of the more fascinating actors we have out there today. He's a terrific actor, and I know that if you're around my age or younger, you definitely know him from Days of Our Lives. He's been on that something like 43 years that he's been playing Tony on there. He's several Emmys and just amazing actor. He also starred in Mission Impossible, which was the remake from the 70s show. And he was on there with like Phil Morris, who's been on the podcast, was also on Mission Impossible, but Phil's dad was on the original. So I always love that story. Jane Badler, who most of you know, playing the lizard alien from V, was in that as well. I always really enjoyed that 90s version. I think it came out in like 88, around the year I graduated high school, and then it maybe ended in the early 90s. But Thaao was terrific in that as well. But as good an actor as he is, he's even better a kind of amateur archaeologist. He's so good with presenting history that you don't know a ton about. You may have heard parts of it, but he really digs into it and gets deep. And this new one, The Great Escape, I can't wait to find out more about the wise men that I've been hearing about my entire life. And I'm not alone, obviously. A lot of us grew up on that particular story. And I'm kind of interested in some of the background. So, if you're like me and that interests you, or you're a fan of Thaao, make sure you check out The Great Escape. And I'll say, go look at The Lost Treasures, which was about Heinrich Schliemann and his treasure. You're going to enjoy it. it was fantastic. So good. So please check that out. If you're finding us for the first time, I'm thrilled to death that you're here, and I would love to have your help. It's easy to do. It's free. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Please subscribe. Really helps us out. Doesn't cost you a dime. Our website is meistercon.com. You can find over 1,000 episodes, audio and video versions. You can, if we're doing anything in studio, if we're going on location, if we're covering a convention, maybe we're walking that passage that Thaao walked. It'll be on the website, meistercon.com. So please check us out there. Thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody.